Hey everyone, it's Dr. Rick. So I posted a protocol of what I would do to initiate change before New Year's. And technically before Christmas too, or Hanukkah if you celebrate that, or just Christmas vacation if you have it coming up. So I didn't. I made a comment about a Mediterranean diet, what to do after you do this initial blast and change and movement thing. So I think that our bodies are made to grab onto and maintain a nutrition practice. And some of us don't do a healthy nutrition practice. That's called the standard American diet, that's just why I'm busy, is because we are just buying into the food industry and commercials on TV and drive-through hunger. So the tendency is to drive through something that is easy, but easy and cheap will usually be expensive and very painful later on. It's just hard to visualize that. Kind of like blood pressure. I have a lot of guys that come in young or old and the blood pressure is tremendously elevated, and for whatever reason nobody feels anything, and that's why it's considered the silent killer. Well, food should be considered a silent killer, but we just don't realize it. And it's considered normal to be having a little extra pounds, having a little extra meal. In fact, we're told that you deserve a break today, or this bud's for you. We're told you have to, since you work so hard, you deserve to eat whatever you want. But that shouldn't be it. It should be since you exercise so hard, or since you devoted and bought into healthy lifestyle change, then you get to imbibe in healthy food. But that message, it doesn't get any profit anywhere, so nobody sells it. I try to do that message to my patients because I live it and I feel the benefits. But unfortunately, I see a lot of patients that haven't been told that the crap is coming, and then when the crap comes, wait a minute, why am I taking so many pills? One pill for 5 different maladies, and it's still you have bypass or cancer later. So anyway, the idea with a good maintenance nutrition practice, again, check out the link down below, because I think U.S. World News Report does a pretty decent job at evaluating giving you an idea of top 10. I think they have more than 10, but they just give little snapshots of each one. 2 of the most popular, and that they also drew questions from a couple of subscribers, was the DASH diet and the Mediterranean diet. I kind of just hinted on what the Mediterranean diet was in my video, but I'm going to try to give you the 30,000 foot view. So just FYI, you can get handouts of the DASH diet on National Heart and Lung and Blood Institute at nih.org, or .gov. So this is just a short snippet. I think this is like 6 pages of a summary. If you want to just get the cliff notes to what to do, that's kind of cool. But the actual one is like 64 pages, and it's got some nice pictures. Gives you ideas about food for the DASH. So the DASH diet is dietary alternatives to stop hypertension. So the idea, and then there's the Mediterranean diet, which there is no book for a Mediterranean diet, at least a protocol or PDF. So you'll have to, this one's just a cooking book. But it did give a couple of good options for different recipes that would fit into the Mediterranean diet. But that's exactly what I want to talk about now. I will hopefully be able to get a little bit of an idea about these 2 great options. So I think I'll mention the Mediterranean diet first. So Mediterranean can include Spain, France, Italy, Greece. And as soon as I say those words, it conjures up, that I can imagine a well-prepared dish from each of those countries, and really robust in flavor, prepared by somebody who comes from one of those countries. Now, that is hard to come by. It costs money, but again, if you can find somebody that cooks that way, grab onto them, be their best friend, just list them down as a very good restaurant. But that's just it. Most of us aren't taught. I never took advantage of my mom's knowledge base. Unfortunately, she's gone now, but she had a great knowledge base that she learned on her own as far as cooking Filipino food. And I think the generation now is devoid of any experiential type practices in the kitchen, because either no time for the parents to teach, or it's theoretically easier just to buy food out. And it's, again, cheap and fast is going to be slow and painful and expensive later on. So just try to heed my warning when it comes time to order online fast. And I think, so anyway, the Mediterranean diet is a practice. It's not really, there are some basics to it, but it's just a practice of certain dishes, and getting experience with those dishes and trying to reproduce that in your own kitchen. So what does it include? It includes veggies, fruits, and and on average about 7 to 10 servings per day. Whole grains, not processed or refined grains. Healthy fats, not trans fats. Weekly, that would be daily. Weekly, it would be fish, poultry, and beans, or egg. And a moderate consumption would be dairy. And trust me, their cows are different than our cows. So check out Dr. Gundry's listing of A2 milk, and he has a plant paradox book, which is really cool. If you get the cliff notes of the list of things to avoid, you'll see what I mean as far as dairy. But again, in the Mediterranean diet, dairy is included, and then very limited amounts of red meat. It's still interspersed in the practice, but it's limited. And I think some of you probably just clicked off because you enjoy red meat, and that's fine. There's no problems. I don't expect any of my patients to follow what I'm doing. Right now, I'm a vegan. And before I was vegan, I was pescatarian. That means usually mostly vegetarian and fish, with occasional messing around with egg or meat. But I didn't really do that on a regular basis. I maintained pescatarianism for at least 7 years because I liked it. It served me well. Took care of my IBS and lowered my cholesterol. The vegan thing I did because of a friend of mine, Bob, that had a heart attack in the office. I don't know if I'll continue with that. I'm able to maintain it, and I'm feeling the best I've ever felt in at least 30 years. In fact, today at the gym, I squatted what I squatted in high school. I did the stack, which is kind of cool, but it leads to knee pain if you're not prepared for it. I did the stack, which I haven't done for a long time, and well, it's cool. But it's so nice to touch youth again, and that's what eating healthy is supposed to do. It's supposed to give every cell in your body the opportunity to work its magic, and every cell should be able to fight cancer or avoid cancer morphing, help with decreasing heart disease, help with thinking and problem solving even more at a later age than you were younger. I think the knowledge of our elders is really leaving because most of our elders are going into Alzheimer's disease. And what's Alzheimer's disease? Well, there's a nickname for it: type 3 diabetes. Again, related to obesity, bad food. That's why it's nice to have an alternative. Now, if you're from the Philippines, this might seem about the basic building blocks, but in the Philippines it's a little different, and whole grain or rice. So there is not one nutrition practice that's better than another. The most important nutrition practice is the one that you'll be able to sustain. And if the only thing you're sustaining is a standard American diet, the SAD diet, that's not going to sustain you. You're going to have a medical disease problem. So the beauty in the Mediterranean diet is that it gives you a jumping point to maybe stock your fridge, maybe investigate different ways of cooking, how to use spices. I think that the only spice that most Americans are used to is a salt and pepper shaker, which nobody usually has that on the table anymore. I think that we've learned that the issues with hypertension are there, and really more people are becoming more adept at using spices and herbs. When you use spices and herbs, I mean, salt is certainly one type of mineral, but there's so many other things in the condiments or in along certain aisles in the grocery store that you can take advantage of, but you just have to be comfortable with it. So you do have to go outside your comfort zone to learn different dishes, whether it's Mediterranean or Asian or South American or New Zealand or American Indian. I don't care, but standard American diet is not going to serve you. It's cheap, it's fast, but in fact it's mostly these. These are the things that you might find in the standard American diet: high sugar, refined grains, refined oil, trans fats, processed meats, and highly processed foods. This is all fast and easy. It can stay on the shelf for a long amount of time. It can stay in a package, in a can. in a box for a long amount of time. That I should have brought it. I don't. It's in my office, but I have a model encased of a steak, egg, and cheese bagel from 2011, and it's still alive. Those of you who come to my office, you can see it at the front. But in fact, I'll post it. Has a picture to the thumbnail of this video, so you'll see it. You probably would have seen it. So this is standard American, and standard American will lead to obesity. I mean, America has 2/3 of adult Americans are obese, and 1/2 of adult adolescents are obese. And that's just a loose quote from the CDC. But the idea is that if you stick with this, you're going to have a problem sooner or later. You might not feel it now, but it's coming your way. And then when you do feel it, it's kind of too late, because either the blood clot has been sent to the brain, the artery is narrowed off, or the cancer is now metastasized. And really, that's what we're looking at. There's other things that are lower quality, like autoimmune disease, allergies, rashes, asthma, arthritis. But man, to wait until this presents itself is so wrong. And unfortunately, we're not. The doctors are supposed to give you the message, but most of my colleagues aren't. So in fact, usually the answer is, you have an elevation, just take this medicine. And the medicine doesn't really get us anywhere. It'll lower the number, but it doesn't change the lifestyle. You have to find the true reason that a person is diving into this, and morph the reason, or change the reason. Educate to get out of that hole. But who has the time? I do these videos because I don't have time in the office. And I really extend my time more than usual because I'm integrative medicine, but I feel terrible for my colleagues who don't have the knowledge base for nutrition. They just send up to other people, and other people are burned out too. So if I send, as a standard primary care doctor, my patient has diabetes, because Medicare will pay for at least one visit in a lifetime, to a nutritionist, and the nutritionist is burned out. The nutritionist isn't going to help. The nutritionist is not going to look at this other person, see how they cook, see what the problems are with the patient's relationship to food, see how the dynamics in the house are going, who does the monetary, who does the paychecks. They're not going to have time for that, so they'll pigeonhole everybody. And that's not the fault of the nutritionist, it's just like the doctor. If we're in a hurry, we just put you into an algorithm, put the patient into an algorithm, and hopefully the algorithm will be answered with a standard answer. But there's so many different people. There are so many different lives. Everybody's different with the way they digest. Some people like Mediterranean, some people like Asian, some people don't like anything. So it really takes time to figure out what's the motivation in this person. How can we make this person better by educating? Not everybody is ready to educate. And that's the basic premise I have is, if you're ready to change, you come to me and I'll help you change. And I'll have my team of doctors or non-doctors or nutritionists or relaxation practice experts or exercisers. I'll have them join your team and we'll have you be in success. But if you're not ready to change, that's fine. I'll wait, because sooner or later you're going to want to change. And if you want to change later, when the diseases have manifested and multiplied times 2 or 3, it's going to be a lot harder. So you'll still have to invest, but I'll wait. So anyway, the idea with the DASH diet is also to get off the line. This is a bad line, standard American diet. So the DASH diet is more American? No, I shouldn't say American. The DASH diet is just more scientific, because the National Heart and Lung and Blood Institute, which is a division of the National Institute of Health, came up with an idea to compare standard American diet, the red, to standard American diet where you force in fruits and vegetables, compared that to the DASH diet. And they found that the DASH diet and the standard American diet with extra fruits and vegetables lowered blood pressure. Pretty cool. And then they did further studies after that, like with the Omni Heart, that showed that you can also lower weight, you can also lower cholesterol. So there's something good about this kind of thinking. But essentially it breaks it down into numbers, which if you're a foodie or a culinary expert, it's not cool to know numbers. It's probably involved in some of the recipes and cooking that a lot of my culinary experts go through, but it kind of takes the love of food and experience of food out of the equation. It just gives you numbers, which maybe for Americans and people that are suffering, it's easier to first embrace the numbers. And if you plug the numbers in, eventually you get payback. But I think that might be an easier way for young people to at least start up. So the DASH diet, dietary approach to stopping hypertension, involves, at least it started at 2,300 milligrams of sodium, and they found that it lowered. But I've really seen this go down to 1,500 milligrams of sodium per day. And you would think, well, I don't put in any extra salt, which is always what I hear. I don't put any extra salt in my food, but there's a lot of salt. There definitely is a lot of salt in this stuff, which is why I like the DASH diet, because it makes people aware that there's extra salt and stuff that's making you have high blood pressure. So this stuff, usually high salt. In addition to other bad things, trans fats, heart disease triggers. So, but the other things that also that are nice about the measuring part, it tells you exactly what you should be doing. So fats and oils, 2 to 3 servings a day. Lower fat-free dairy, 2 to 3 servings a day. Nuts, seeds, beans, and legumes, 4 to 5 servings a day. Fruits, veggies, 4 to 5 servings a day each. And then meat, poultry, fish, 6 or less. Grains, whole grains, not just what you might think of as white bread, but whole grains. 6 to 8 if you can get it in, and that's the basis of the pyramid of the DASH diet. And then sweets are actually included. I don't know if I agree with this, but I think they're being lenient. Sweets, 5 or less per day. So that gives you, in a measured nutshell, what you're supposed to be doing. Now, again, the question is, if you have somebody that's not a cook, culinary expert, doesn't know how to use a burner in the kitchen, doesn't know how to use proportions and taste, it might be tough to do this, the Mediterranean diet, but it might be easier to do this. So, and that's what I liked about the DASH, is that it did open the general public up into reading panels. And I think that's one of the strong things about the USDA is that we were able to get at least consensus about putting something of a label on the food group. So much, well, I mean, you can't have it on a cantaloupe, but if you have at least a package of some sort that's healthy, there's supposed to be a label on it, including vitamins. So that's the cool thing out of all this, is that you can, if you know how to read a label, if you don't know how to read a label, the DASH will inspire you to read a label. If you know how to read a label, be careful, but read deeper. Because when you start reading deeper, you'll be able to measure cholesterol, sodium, especially for my hypertensives, so carbohydrates and all the other macronutrients. But just get used to reading labels, and then eventually what happens is you won't actually need the label, but you'll be able to cook like a culinary expert and still beat the diseases that are coming. So I say that the DASH diet might be the first step, and again, check out my video with the U.S. World News Report, because they have a nice summary on the DASH diet too. It might be the nice first step to get off of this longitudinal thing that most Americans are going through, and it's built in college. In college, I still remember LaSalle University, salt, pepper, salt was brown, pepper was gray. It's always on, it's like between, in a long 10-seat table, you can bet there's always going to be 3 pairs. And everybody would throw the salt because we always put stuff in. Even on the already salted stuff, you put more salt in because it was so bland in college. So we only know that. And nowadays, with the microwave world, that stuff also is high because it's highly processed. So you might not taste it. Like, for example, Coke. You wouldn't think salt is in Coke, but it's very high. You wouldn't think salt is in your bread, but it's very high. I believe 3 pieces of bread, a bagel, breakfast sandwich will usually give you about 1,000 milligrams, close to 1,000, can give you about 1,000 milligrams of salt. And if you're limited to 1,500 milligrams of salt per day, again, this says 23, but you can lower your blood pressure and cholesterol even faster, and we're talking about 2 weeks, even faster when you dive down to 1,500. But your taste buds are going to be screaming, what am I eating? Because they're so used to sugar and salt. But after you get past the 2-week mark, you'll see your blood pressure numbers drop, which is really cool. You just have to get past the detox. So I think that's probably why they allow sweets, is because when people get away from the sweets, they just have such a terrible detox. I've had so many patients say that I can't stop, or I can't do the intermittent fasting because when I don't eat at 8 or 9, I will be weak. And I don't think, I think that's a learned response. I mean, it's very unusual to be hypoglycemic from exercise. It's very unusual because the brain has a built-in mechanism. Very unusual to crash from hypoglycemia at a low glucose level. Glucose is the fuel in the blood. Very rare to have that bottom out unless you're on prescription medicines. And if you're not on prescription medicines and you just feel a little dizzy when you don't have enough fuel, or irritable, cranky, headachy, chest painy, cramping, when that happens, it's because mostly it's an insulin dump. And I'll do another video on insulin dump. I think I actually have one on insulin resistance, so check that out. Or glycemic index. I talk about the wave of dumping after insulin is up and spiked, and then it goes down below the deck. That makes you hunt for food because you feel that. I think that's the reason everybody's bottoming out and feeling that they can't manifest decreasing their total volume. They can't manifest getting off of the line without taking a standard American diet. So it is more successful if you can get a coach to guide you. Because doing it on your own, just putting this in, maybe reading NLIB's suggestions, it's 68 pages if you want the whole thing, or just buying this book and trying to burn a couple dishes but make a couple dishes on your own. I think it's fair to do that, but it's a better investment and faster learning curve if you have a coach show you. So that's why it's so important, but it's just a tough sell. A lot of my patients will say, is it covered by insurance? And no, it's not covered by insurance. What's covered by insurance is usually a bypass or cancer surgery or going to rehab or a stroke unit or a memory care place. That's covered by insurance. I wouldn't want that on anybody, but you can't just stop at stuff that's covered by insurance. Everybody has a reason that they can't afford stuff, but you just have to see the consequences of where you're going if you go with what's covered by insurance. Sorry for all the quotes, but I don't know why I'm doing that. So between the two things, again, Mediterranean versus DASH, I like them both. I would say DASH would be the first thing I would invest in, and Mediterranean might be the next thing to morph into. And there's other diets after that, the Mind diet. There's smaller diets, Weight Watchers apps and stuff like that, that do help with moving the line, getting you off the line here. But again, it's an investment. So hopefully this gives you guys that ask questions an idea about the DASH, maybe about the Mediterranean. But bottom line is, please do more reading on your own. Valid sources, please. I like National Institute of Health. So if you put your search in a search that you have, say, for Mediterranean diet, if you also put NIH, it'll give you some very scientific papers that have been put out, but that's where the credentials come. You have to always scrutinize where the studies come from and who funded them, but hopefully you'll find and sift through and get used to reading proper studies. If you have any questions, put them in the comments down below. If you're using your phone, you have to scroll way down past all the other videos to comment. If you're on your laptop, just put them in the comments because I'd love to hear what best diet you guys use. Again, there's not one that's better than another, but it always depends on what you can manifest and maintain. If the one that you're doing now is not working, then try something different. Set your intention to change and be wise. Give it at least 3 months. And if it's not working, add or subtract, change your recipe a little bit, morph it to your own liking. If you still can't get it to work, meaning losing weight, lowering numbers, getting your blood pressure down, changing your labs, then you need some help. Either come into your doctor, hopefully they listen, or find somebody outside the hospital community on your own that's safe and has at least a decent knowledge base. So otherwise, don't forget to subscribe. If you have anybody that's lost, please send this and share. I'll see you at the next tutorial.